Okay. So first off, I will play the sympathy card. This is my first talk at a large conference, if this counts as large. I am James Raspass. This is running Arbitrary code safely, building a Perl 6 playground. You may have seen the slightly more playful title of Swings and Roundabouts that was apparently not inducive to conveying what this is about, but I liked it. Okay. So a playground. So lots of other languages have the idea of a playground. This is a random quote I took off the internet. There's other ways of explaining it. Basically, it lets you run code without having to install the interpreter, install the compiler, whatever. It's a great way of onboarding new people because it reduces the barrier of entry significantly because they can just go to a website, everyone's got a browser, type some crap in and see what happens and iterate. So it's like a REPL, but for the internet age. You may have come across CodePen and JS Fiddle. They're quite popular for sharing snippets of CSS, JavaScript, etc. But they have it a lot easier than us because all their stuff runs in the browser. So when I saw the Go one, playgolang.org, I was really impressed. So they have a text area, you type in the code, and it sends it to the server, executes it, and comes back. And supposedly it's nice and safe and sandboxed. As far as I know, it hasn't been compromised. So I thought, why not do that for Perl 6? How hard can it be? So that's what it looks like. It's been in development for about 2 months on and off, just in spare time. I stole the color scheme from perl.6.org. Not a huge fan of the green, but it kind of works. Type some code in the top box, press the blue button, and you get your output at the bottom. Tells you your exit code signal, shows warnings if there are any. There will be some. And it's all pretty straightforward. No syntax highlighting. Couldn't find a decent editor client side that would actually do Perl 6. Yeah. I'm sure that will change over time. Right, so given Perl, there is more than one way you can do this. So the Rakudo project is an implementation of Perl 6, Raku, etc., and it targets many different backends. So there is the MoreVM backend, which is sort of the main one. They also target the JVM, and they also additionally target transpiling down to JavaScript, which is, or I think the interpreters transpile to JavaScript, then you execute them there. But that's pretty damn clever, because in theory it means you can run your entire language client-side in the browser. So that would be the easy idea, and that's what other people have done. So that's one I found while Googling around. And that's just 6pad, you type it in, same idea. But that wouldn't be fun. And where's the fun in just punting it to the client? And also it does have certain performance characteristics that might be undesirable, like you have to download the entire interpreter first time you hit it. Obviously that can be cached, but still not great. So I thought, why not try it with the real one? Why not try and execute it server side and see how hard that would be? So you need a sandbox. And because this is a playground, sandbox, it fits. So we'll start with the easy side. You grab a text area, you grab some JavaScript so that when they press Control-Enter or press the button, it sends it to the server. That's nothing special, though the ridiculous amount of attributes you need to make a text area not think it's prose. Like, I do not want to auto-capitalize my sentence. It's not a sentence, it's an if. So you turn all that crap off, and some of these vary by browser, some of these vary by, yeah, it's a world of hurt. I think I actually nicked that one off the Go playground, so I assume they know what they're doing. Nice little thing at the bottom, if you press Control-Enter, it will submit the code, just in case you don't want to use the mouse. I know a lot of people like keyboard shortcuts. So that's that. So just post it, take the output, stick it in a box. Nice and simple. Now the fun part begins, because you need to take the code that someone's written and execute it on your server, but you don't trust them for shit, because, you know, they could do backtick rm-rf just for a laugh. Okay, fun doesn't quite start yet. First, you have to hit the Perl 6. So this is Crow. Crow is written by Jonathan Worthington. I hear it's not a web framework, though I use it as a web framework. So actually, you don't see much here except for the request body text. So $code will contain the decoded post data. So it's been UTF-8 decoded and all that jazz. So it's just a string. It's nothing special. Then we build a asynchronous proc object, and then we do some really clever Perl stuff. I really like this, because I've done this a few times in other languages, and I find this one of the more readable ones, because there's a few things you want to do. You want to execute the code, you want to grab the streams out and store them in a variable, you want to die if it takes too long, you want to pass stuff to the input, and usually that's a song and dance, and it all looks a bit painful. I've got the Go version of this somewhere, and it's a lot longer and a lot less fun to read. I really quite like the promise in 5 at the bottom, which just says in 5 seconds, just kill it. And then that will fall into one of the other whenever blocks, you get the exit code, and then you return. I quite like that. I would explain it, but my Perl 6 is dreadful. The only thing I did quite like is proc start will finish when it stops, which I found a bit sort of oxymoronic, but yeah. I think it returns a promise that then fulfills it when it finishes. And yeah. So that's the only Perl 6 in this entire slide. Hope you enjoyed it. Now we get to the C. So you saw the previous slide called run Perl. Run Perl is just a binary that's been compiled on the system, stuck in user local bin. This is actually inside a container, but that's not important for this part. But how's that written? Well, the first thing it does is it's a special setUID binary, because I want to do stuff that I shouldn't be able to do as a normal user. I want to be able to change namespaces. I want to be able to do random system calls that any root can do. So you compile this binary, and you do the sticky bit that says, no matter which user runs this, it will execute as root. Obviously, make sure you step down before you do anything fun, but it starts as root. So you've got your web server running on a nice unprivileged user, nobody. That can't do anything really. Even the listening to the ports is done elsewhere, so it doesn't have to listen under 1024, etc. And then this calls this then steps up to root, and then it does some stuff and then steps down. Yeah, just cheering it and chmod it, it's quite simple. And then the step one, so this is containers by its real name. So you've heard of Docker, you've heard of runc maybe, you've heard of libcontainer. All they do is wrap a bunch of system calls. They're sort of a collection of ideas rather than a single implementation. The main idea is namespaces. So in the kernel, you can move a process into different namespaces. And these namespaces divide up things like networking, so that's the new net namespace. So if you go into a different network namespace, you will not have access to the same network interfaces as the process who spawned it. You can do new NS, which I assume was the first namespace, since it just says new namespace, which is actually the mounting of the file system. So if you do that, you see a different file system from the previous process. And you set all these flags up. You're basically dropping all these different namespaces. So you're unsharing your state with the parent, which is quite nice from a point of view of containing. So you're containing the damage, or containing the scope of what you can do. So that's a simple bit of C. If it returns low, then bail out and return high. Yep. I won't bore you with all the details. There are a few I'm not doing for various reasons. I would love to use user namespaces, but that really confuses the next bit of code. This can probably be made a whole world safer. I do not claim the security of the site in any way. It runs on a DistriOcean. Compromise it as much as you want. I don't care. So you do that, and you got some idea. You got some stepping down. Right. This took me way too long to work out how to do. This is basically the dance of how you move into a so from your root being your real root to a fake root. Ideally, it would just be the middle syscall, which is you're pivoting your root. That is the main part of how you move from one root namespace to another. But there's a whole song and dance you have to do first, where you have to mount it as private and bindable and all that crap, and then you have to unmount the old one. But anyway, those 5 syscalls in a row will leave you pointed at a different root namespace, so that if they do an ls or whatever, they will not see what the host saw. So this is sort of host guess, but it's not VMs. It's containers. So this is what Docker does every time you start it. Sorry, I keep hitting the mic. Yeah. So I'm cautious. I'm probably breezing through this quite quickly, but this is the driver behind separating it from the host. All of this is on GitHub if you want to read it in more detail, because I'm only showing you snippets. Because who wants to see pages and pages of C? Okay, so we've already created a new namespace. One of the namespaces we've created means we can set the host name with impunity without affecting the host. So why not call it a fun host name? So play Perl 6. In theory, I could give you a different host name per execution, so we could have like witty names, which is one of the things Docker does. It generates random host names, if you've ever seen them. They're usually like noun, verb, whatever. I don't know which around. But it's, I think they try really hard not to create swear words and stuff like that. But essentially, yeah, you can be nice and fun. Stroh with len, I completely nicked from the Perl internals. It's a wonderful little macro that will give you a string that's a constant string, and it'll give you the size of the string. So you don't have to count the characters yourself and then get off by one error and then curse yourself why your name is truncated or has null characters everywhere. Then we step down to nobody. So I told you this binary runs as root. If I hadn't done those last 2 steps, the Perl would execute as root. Because I'm not in user namespaces, it would be real root. That'd be bad. So those 2 very important. So that sets the GID and the UID to the nobody user. I think this is reasonably standardized across distros. Because this isn't a container, I actually had to put an etc password and etc group into the container for stuff like Perl to go, well, I don't know what name it is. You've given me a UID, but I don't know who the hell that is. But I think that's pretty standard across distros. That's 6.5, 5.3.4. striking by the number, it's probably quite high, quite near the max, I imagine. I don't know. Don't know any bytes you're allowed. Okay, this is by far the most dense slide. I apologize. So seccomp is tangential to Docker containers. It predates them as far as I know, maybe not, but certainly it's been around a while. It is a way of filtering what syscalls a program is allowed to use. Fundamentally, so it's secure computing mode. There are two versions of this. This is the second version, where you essentially build a program in user space and upload it to the kernel, and the kernel will execute it. This is obviously quite entertaining. You can run code in the kernel. Yay! It's a very, very dumbed down virtual machine. It's the Berkeley packet filter or something like that. But essentially, all I'm doing here is building up a program in the middle that says, that's going to work. Awesome. That you're allowed to call the read syscall, the first syscall ever added to the kernel, syscall 0. And you're allowed to call clone, which is the last one as far as time of publication. And there's a few in the middle you can do as well. Well, quite a few more than a few. But you can't, for instance, do the, I don't know, the one that lets you load kernel modules. That would be a bad idea. So you basically whitelist what syscalls the user are allowed to run. You've already stepped down the user privileges, so most of these syscalls would fail anyway. But just in case there's a bug in the kernel, because all software's buggy, you want defense in depth. You want as many layers as you can between their code and your host. So you filter the syscalls, you drop the users, you change the namespaces, you do it all. And that's all that does. I may have to tweak them, because as you start running programs, you'll realize that they fail. Because what it does at the bottom there is it returns sig kill. So if they try and do a syscall they're not allowed to do, it'll just kill the program outright. And then you run journal CTL and you go, oh, it died. Yeah, they probably do want that syscall. And you go, is it dangerous? Probably not. Or you just take a guess. That's what I did anyway. And then finally, the simplest part. You just exec Perl 6. Took us 12 slides to get to this point, but yeah. So you've done all that setup, and then you just replace your current working copy with the Perl 6 binary. This got a lot easier when Perl 6 stopped being a bash wrapper around more VM. So glad that happened. Because otherwise you had to ship a lot more crap in the container to make it work, because it was just a shell script that then invoked more VM. Now I think it links to libmore. But yeah, so the user's code, which you remember from the Perl 6 slide, is coming in via standard in. So you're literally printing their code to the process. So all the C is done is not touched file handle, statement handle 1. It's not touched the standard in at all. So Perl 6 is then going to execute and go, oh, I have no arguments. Better read from standard in then. Oh, that got some Perl 6 code. Let's execute it and see what it does. This syscall obviously doesn't need an if, because it should never return. If it returns, it's an error, because exec replaces the current working copy. Same in Perl 5, and not sure if Perl 6 has one. And after all that, we come to the command interface. This was an accidental feature that a colleague of mine suggested, you know what, you could do this. Because you post data at it, and I moved the root from like /run to /, you can use it with curl, which means you've essentially got Perl. If you alias this, you'd have Perl 6 on the command line without having Perl 6. Not the greatest example, just say 1 + 2, but I do quite like that, just leave this, don't bother quoting it, leave the spaces out, Echo will do the right thing. And then just for extra credit, it supports the accept header. So by default, it'll give you plain text. If you pass accept application JSON, you'll get JSON back, which is what the web UI needs, because web UI obviously prints these out in nice, pretty places. But yeah, you run it. That works. That's a live URL. You can replace it with raku.org if you want, because I've also bought both, because why not? The curl bit is a bit messy. I mean, LD hyphen doesn't exactly roll off the tongue. But there's probably better ways of writing that. The L's just following the redirect, because that way you can drop off the protocol. But yeah, the L's not needed if you stick HPS in there. Right, and now we come to the part that every talk should have, a live demo. But don't worry, it's not actually live, because I'm running it on the laptop. So, that's the source code, you don't want that. You want to see that. So I don't know how big I can make this, probably a bit bigger. So that's the welcome page. It is very boring. It's just giving you a bunch of information. So it's just a here doc. It's nothing special. If anyone, I'm assuming most people in this room have seen Perl 6. It's very similar to Perl 5 in that sense, apart from the weird you choose the QQ2. Some of the cool things are that you can do method calls inside strings, as long as you put parentheses in the end. I believe that's so that you can have file extensions that don't evoke as methods. So you have to opt in to method calls, and by default it assumes you're just doing .foo. yeah, I quite like that. And then if you want to do anything a bit more clever, you do code blocks, and code blocks are just like that. So no more baby carts, no more all the crazy hacks you did in Perl 5 so you could invoke function calls without leaving a string. And you click run, and it does stuff. And that's pretty quick, because it's run on my laptop. So it's telling me I'm running the Recrudo from a couple months ago. Don't think there's a newer version yet. Still called Perl 6 in that one. Sure that'll change at some point. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. And it says Xcode 0, signal 0. And if I was to do something a bit more crazy, then it'll tell me Xcode 1. And then I thought this is quite cool, but people obviously want some inspiration to start, so I whacked up an examples page. And then spent pretty much, yeah, most of the development time of this website was me thinking up cool examples in Perl 6. And that's what I came up with. I'm particularly proud of this one, because you were on the command line one day, I went, cow looks quite nice. How would you do cow in a programming language? Perl 6. I mean, I probably should have done like ANSI escapes for the current date or something, but yeah. It's got some really nice methods in there. I like that you have a date module that's first class, not to be confused with a date time module, so it works on days, and it makes the maths really easy. There's lots of nice stuff in there. Rotor is incredibly powerful. When I first wrote this, I was basically looking for list more utils and went, oh, it's not there. And then you just read the standard library and go, Hyperoperator, everyone's favorite. And you can't write Perl 6 without some Unicode, so that's Unicode, as is that, just because. They both have bigger in-Texas operators, but I prefer the Unicode. So if you ever want to send a PR, send me an example, because there's lots of cool ones you can do. Like, who doesn't want the playing cards in Unicode? And then every time you run it, they're just shuffled. Right, and I think I actually have a slide after that, because I have time, because I talk way too fast when it's real. So I started this project as a proof of concept. I was never intending for it to last, but it kind of works, to be honest, so I might as well keep it around. So if I jump right to the bottom slide, it'd be nice to make it a first-class citizen. I don't know who I need to talk to, probably someone like Alex Daniel or Jonathan or anyone who's in charge of Raku, and go, I'm happy to host it if you just point your subdomain at me. I reckon it could be quite cool. We've already got modules to put, so we have the precedent of moving stuff to subdomains that aren't part of the main thing. So modules is the big one. But obviously I don't want to necessarily be the de facto standard. I haven't actually put a license on this, but it can be any license people want. Permissive, I don't care. So I'm happy to move this to whatever foundation but it'd be nice, I think it'd be nice to have a playground. I know a lot of people aren't, or don't see the point of them these days, but I still think they're a great tool for onboarding. And the one feature that Go has that I think we would hugely benefit is the ability to run examples from the documentation. And if you can edit them as well, even better. So you're like, I want to use this method. How does it work? Oh, I just press run, and you can see it and then edit it. I think that's a really killer feature. So if we had that and the, sure I mentioned that, yeah, all that crap, and whatever else people think would be good. C groups. I did not cover C groups. So one of the limitations of the site, and you're all going to blatantly try it now, is you can consume as much RAM as you want until the killer steps in and hopefully kills your program and not my server. But well, yeah, it's yeah. I don't know a fault bomb off the top of my head, but I'm sure I can think of one. Yeah, so C groups would be a great example, a feature I should add, because while I limit you to 5 seconds execution, I do not limit how much RAM you can consume and how many processes you could create, and you could go nuts. So that is definitely something that should be implemented. So either I'll get around to that or someone will beat me to it. But yeah, reasonably easy. I believe you just write to some magical files in proc, and it does the right thing. This is my first time writing a Perl 6 website, so I found Crow quite easy to use. Certainly beats Perl 5 pre-forking and all that jazz. The only thing I will say is the startup time is quite slow. So when I ship a deploy to this, the site is basically returning a 503 for a good 10 plus seconds, which is obviously not a great experience. It's running on a single instance. It probably needs multiple blue-green deploys and load balancing and all that jazz. But it was a website I threw together for a talk. I wasn't going to invest too heavily in the infrastructure. But it's all doable. I think Raku certainly has a future for web development because it's just so nice, and the types are nice, and it's just, I don't know. It's the same thing Conway said a few years back. It makes me hate Perl 5 because it's so nice. I really want all those features for my day job, but I can't. So yeah, that is pretty much it. I probably finished ahead of time, but thank you. Any questions? Oh, sorry, you got to run the back.
Have you heard the good word of BSD jails instead of using separate?
I have heard of BSD jails. I just never have run BSD in my life, so I thought I'd stick to Linux.
Okay, so you could probably do away with all of that C things for
Okay.
isolating the process and avoid having to run things as setuid.
Okay. Yeah.
The only thing is like with the memory resource control, that's like kind of a tricky one, but obviously because you're running stuff as root.
I only root for a little bit of time. I do step down as quick as I can. But yeah, there are more than one way to do this. VMs would obviously be an idea, but I kind of wanted quick startup time. I guess I could keep a pool around or something, but I kind of stole the software from my other project, GoGolf, so it was not hard to get it running. But yeah. Oh god.
Yeah, I was effectively asked the same question. Why not use Docker? Because that's obviously pretty fast.
Yes, so the whole thing is inside Docker. So there is a Docker container running the website, and then the website kicks off mini containers underneath it. And I don't, because I'm not using Docker, I don't have to put Docker, I don't have to volume mount the Unix socket or anything. I'll put Docker in the container. So the container doesn't have the Docker daemon. It has bugger all inside it. It literally is just the Perl binary and the C binary. I try to keep it as minimal as possible because I thought that would reduce the attack surface. But yeah, Docker is probably.
I was thinking you wrote a lot of code which was set to Docker.
Yes, and in fact, I probably should use run C, let's face it, because Docker is nice. It's nice for building containers, and it's not what you'd necessarily run in production. You'd run something a bit lower, like libcontainer or run C, personally. Yeah, almost certainly can be done better. It's just more fun to. The whole point, it's a site for fun. Like, you want to learn how these things work. We don't write Perl because it's the right tool. We write it because it's fun. But yeah, no, you've got a fair point. But reinventing the wheel's fun. This is the one thing I didn't show. It does actually obviously work on the command line, just like Perl 6. Yay! Any more questions, or is that it? Yeah, I think we had. So, not to my knowledge, though, I haven't exactly publicised the site. I think it hit the IRC rooms last week, and someone was reasonably happy that I didn't massively expose myself because bin only had a few binaries in it. But as far as I know, no one's tried to attack it in, with passion. Go for it. Yes, literally, that's part of the reason why I wanted to write it myself is because I figured I could skip some of the, the stuff that makes it slow. You literally, the web server is running as the nobody user, then it invokes a binary that's root, then it sets it all up, and everyone gets a separate read-only copy of a directory called rootfs. So all these processes are spawned. If multiple users are using the site at once, these processes will be spawned all looking at the same root, but they'd have different namespaces onto it, and they wouldn't. So if you could write to them, they wouldn't see each other's changes, and they shouldn't see much else from the user. I'm not using process namespaces, so they would actually occupy the same process namespace, so they could see each other if they did a PS. Not they convoke PS, but the equivalent of PS. Yeah.
So I guess if somebody did break out, they would have to then drop some sort of persistence.
So if they broke out, the namespace they're currently in is read-only, so they'd have to get past that. Then they're inside another Docker container, and then they're on a virtualized DigitalOcean droplet. So I mean, they can break out as much as they want, but I don't think they're going to get very far. And the network namespace means they can't hit the internet, which is fairly important, I figured, because even if they couldn't break out, they could run a bot 5 seconds at a time or something and scrape people.
Another question about
Yeah.
the second Cisco.
Yeah.
Did you just sort of
So this.
whitelist, or did you just
Oh yeah. I was gonna.
Perl 6 and see what it called and
So this.
how it goes?
So this is probably completely unreadable. Is the start of my second function. So literally, I grabbed all of the system calls and grouped them roughly by what they do, So these aren't in numeric order, they're sort of in category order. So this is all file system operations followed by network. So as you can see, most networking syscalls are turned off. So even though they're in a network namespace, I figured there's no need for any of those. Socket pair is needed. I don't know why. I think the binaries are talking to each other over Unix sockets or something. But yeah, essentially all I did was start with them all turned on, turn a bunch off, run a few programs, see what complains, and then just work my way down. It was not scientific at all. I didn't instrument the binary anyway. It's just try it and see what happens. Yes, so yeah. So by default, it will log to journal CTL, and it'll just say that this system call was denied and it got killed.
So actually, and then the Perl 6 that gets sent. That gets sent to the.
Oh God, no, I'm not logging that. So yeah, if you probably should. So yeah, if you did find a exploit, I wouldn't know what it was. Good point. All right, I think that's it. Thank you very much.